So how many of you, I always like to start with the survey, how many of you are actually going through a digital transformation journey today? And is it a 1 year, 2 year, 5 year? How long is your journey, and is it completely been planned out?
Perpetual.
Yeah, so it's never ending. So when I came up with the topic, how intelligence helps create opportunity plans leading to better data, better decision, and better outcomes, I was really thinking about all the conversations I've had with CPOs, buyers, people in procurement. So a little bit about my background. I don't actually come from procurement. I come from software. And so when I accepted the CEO role at Xeeva, I started during the pandemic because I didn't know there was going to be a pandemic. So think about accepting a new position, coming in, and then everything shutting down, and you're trying to figure out, just like all of you, we all went to this work from home kind of environment, and we had to figure out a new way. And then who knew there would be a global pandemic as it's been? Who knew we would be in a status of war? Who knew that we would have this great resignation? Like, how many of you have your teams fully staffed right now? Yeah, so when we talk about all the tools and you're hearing from all the vendors outside, the execution of it just is really difficult to do. And this has been something as we think about this digital transformation, but it's really the environment that we're sitting in today. Everybody keeps talking about the future and AI and everything that can be done, but you go back to your offices and you're dealing with the reality of what you need to do and what your CPO and your CEO is stipulating that you need to accomplish. As I start this presentation, let me introduce Aparna Goudet, who's our head of product at Xeeva, and Chad Hill, who's our chief revenue officer. And Dave Stone is our head of marketing here as well. And as we started thinking about what is going on from an environment today, and I'm thinking about all the presentations and listening to the panel, listening to Michael Shaw, it's where does a company like Xeeva sit, and how can Xeeva help organizations, and all organizations, not the large ones, the small ones. We talk about, and not coming from this environment, how long it takes to do an execution of this digital transformation that we keep talking about. And when I thought about where can we sit, where can we help, we thought about the fact that Xeeva has this kind of end-to-end technology, but you're all using technology. You either have best of breed, you've implemented SAP, you've implemented Coupa, you may have implemented it years ago. And as Michael Shaw was talking about, you've got these historic platforms out there and they're ingesting AI. When Xeeva was rethinking about the data models that they were putting together, again, being not from this industry and kind of new to this, we took a different approach. We started with data first, because what I saw with all the data coming from organizations is data is bad. It's garbage in, garbage out. How many of you would say that the data in your ERPs is 60, 70, 80% accurate? Anybody? How many of you would say from a classification perspective that you've got your classification correct? And so that's what I noticed. Remember, not coming from the industry, I said, wait, it's got to start with the data. I have a finance background, and so does Chad, and Aparna has a product background, but from a different industry specifically. So I said, look, how can you work with bad data? Coming from being head of corporate finance for a Fortune 50, I just didn't understand, because it all leads to cost centers, and it all leads to your budget, right? So at the end of the day, when you're thinking about it, you've got to apply it when you're doing purchases. So we came up with a framework that said, we've got this technology, but if your data is bad and you can't normalize it, you can't classify it, you can't enrich it, it's not going to help you. And if you can't update your ERP. The other thing I realized is all of you collaborate, right? You came to this conference together, and you're collaborating, and you're talking about what you're doing, but listening to the woman from IBM, Melissa, about sharing data and data privacy from that perspective, the way AI really learns is by a collaboration of data. So what we did is when we built out our AI platform, we took all the data from company 1 to company 100, and what we said was, it's gonna learn from all the data set, and every company before and after is gonna get the benefit from it. I'll give you a good example. We, through a partner, see Walmart's data. We enrich Walmart's data through our platform. And every company that we work with, if we've enriched it, they get that data for free so they can update their catalogs. And we also do a data quality score, and we say with the data quality score, this tells you what percentage of your data is good now, because it's a journey. Just like your data transformation, this is a full journey. We can't take data and magically turn something on and say it's good. But from a refresh perspective, it becomes this journey of this improvement. And also, from a data enrichment, if we've enriched it through our pipeline, you get the benefit too. The other thing we wanted to do, and we saw through the transformation, you've got all these companies that we're working with, you've got the data, you've got the applications, and the data is separate, and the applications, based upon who you are, should have a view of how you're going to use it from people who are buyers, from people who are doing sourcing, from people who are in procurement. We also wanted to connect suppliers. So one other thing we did is we opened up our platform, so it's an open API, but any supplier globally can register. The other thing we did is we said, look, if they've got a public catalog to benefit this community that we're creating, upload your catalogs as well. If you want to put a discount factor to that catalog, absolutely go do it. And this is the benefit. If you're having your data come through, it's getting cleansed and normalized, you see the insights through analytics, but on the flip side, if you've got a contract that's expiring, or Grainger's charging you X amount for tooling, but they've uploaded a catalog in that particular category, tooling has gone down, if you can get an alert that says, hey, by the way, there is a discount to this, wouldn't that be beneficial to you so that you can take some impactful decision with that? And if you could discover, the gentleman up here right before from a panel perspective was talking about diverse suppliers. And if you knew they were a minority-owned diverse supplier, if you knew they fit your DEI or ESG profile as well, and if you knew they were regionalized, because it's becoming regionalized, the power of the data becomes very, very powerful. And this is something, as we were thinking about this holistically, we wanted to build a platform that did that, to answer the specific problems that procurement executives are facing today. Not in the future, but the fact that you don't have the people, you don't have good data, you're gonna need, from a network effect, not just your data, but others in your industry as well. And that really just kind of talks about the digital transformation of how the data comes in, how you cleanse it, how you improve it. And it also talks about supplier risk. So it's everything that you've heard, and it's interesting because Chad and I just came back from SIG, and it's the same thing. We don't have the people, we don't have the visibility. You can see that bosses change throughout, but there's so much risk with suppliers today. Who knew that through the pandemic that your suppliers would not be able to get you the goods that you need, that were gonna affect your revenue, was gonna affect your operational expense? I've heard from one client that basically said, my prices went up because of all the inflationary issues, but I can't pass that on to my clients. So they're taking a margin hit from that as well. What if you could find other suppliers that were actually coming in less that improved it? And so what Chad's gonna talk about now is, I kind of talked about what is going on. Chad's gonna talk about what he's seen from a procurement perspective, but also what some of our clients are doing today. Chad?
Yeah, so Nina paints a beautiful picture of your data journey, and we all want to get there, but we're all going to face some problems. Every data transformation is going to face some problems. We can cleanse it, but we got to realize that it's going to be an agile process. None of us expected the pandemic, as Nina said. None of us have expected the Ukraine war to come in and disrupt our supply chains the way it has. So being aware of what are your supplier risks, what type of effects can inflation have on your spend, your supply base, how can fraud? We see fraud in all kinds of different forms coming into our process. So once you've completed your data transformation, you're going through your digital transformation process, how can you be aware and how can better data help you be prepared to face these type of disruptions and challenges throughout your process. Next slide. We'll jump into the first case study, which is a large global construction management company with $3 billion in global spend. They have operations around the globe. And really their big challenge that they came to us is the need to have a better understanding of what is their risk in their supply base. They had the data, they had the supplier relationships, but they didn't have it all consolidated in one place where they could make actionable insights on that risk. So we came in, we helped them cleanse their data, we put it into the analytics tool, we visualized it, we put the taxonomy to get to that granular view of what you're doing. But still, if we're not connecting the downstream with those visual analytics and a solid P2P tool that can properly onboard your suppliers and provide that data back into the visualization tool, you're missing the risk that exists in your downstream procurement tools. So being able to connect what you're doing on your P2P, your daily transactions, with your strategic transformation efforts and connecting that on the digital base, can you enforce your preferred buying channels by location, by supplier, by category? You have that visibility to even enact those type of policies. And then when you're onboarding new suppliers across your globe, when that's happening with your end users, you have visibility into what information they're collecting. Is there a standardized process of what that onboarding process looks like? So when that data feeds back into your system and for your analytic dashboards, you can make actionable decisions to avoid the supplier risk. Second one, war in Ukraine. This hit us very hard as we have several customers in Eastern Europe that rely quite a bit on the Ukraine. This one was one of our sustainable packaging customers. They got hit with it out of the blue. Luckily, their data was in a place where they could quickly make actionable insights. But again, by having the data cleansed, by going through your transformation, if you don't have a plan to enact when those type of things happen, of finding new tier 1, tier 2 suppliers for these categories that are seeing disruptions, you have a disconnect in your process. You're seeing more risk in your procurement journey. So what we were able to do with them, because we have transformed their data, because it's in a system that has granular visibility into it, and is connected to an open marketplace, within a few hours of this client calling us, our AI was able to put together their category wave plans to go out and resource these with supplier discovery already done within the tool and suggesting alternative suppliers to be able to ensure that their supply chains, their end products were getting to their customers at the end of the day. I don't know if you have anything to add to this one.
No, that's exactly right. And I think that's the other thing. So what the AI does, people talk about AI and the use of it. So we're using it for the cleansing of the data, the normalization, but we're also using it for intelligent opportunities. So the AI surfaces over 150 categories, the opportunities based upon a criteria of, we heard tail spend, we talk about how many suppliers that you're using across one item, and if you're doing it because of your global companies, right? So other people in other countries are using different suppliers. If you can consolidate it, it's looking at working capital. So the wave plans provide the project and the outline for an entire year. Because the other thing you keep hearing about is analytics. Everybody's got some analytics platform. We came up 2 years ago and started saying, we've got an analytics platform, and I can tell you the next question I got is, this is great, I don't have the people, and how do I execute? Does that make sense? It's kind of, what's the next step? I can show you all this analytics, I can show you a path, but what is the execution? Do you guys have that same issue as you're going through your entire process with not having staffing? So it's great, you've got a target, you can see it, but what do I do next?
Yeah, and this plays well into the next story. So inflation, same thing. If you're ready for it, you prepared for it, you can understand how it's going to affect your overall processes, affect your savings and goals, your spend overall. But then being able to take action on it, to go out and renegotiate with your suppliers, again, you have to go through your data transformation. You have to have the granularity and consolidation of your unstructured data across all of your locations in a central view to get a true holistic idea of where we can start to run some new negotiations with our suppliers. See what kinds of savings we can run through strategic RFP efforts. But if you haven't gone through that data transformation process yet, it's very difficult to go back to your suppliers if you don't know the parent-child mapping of what those relationships look like. What are your payment term consolidations across your locations? One of our case studies is on Martin Ria. They operate in over 34 different countries around the globe. Very, very complex to get a single visibility into what their supply chain is doing. by running through the data transformation process with Xeeva, we're able to consolidate and enhance their data to give them that visibility. But as Nina said, and this quote comes directly from their VP of supply chain, where we actually ran their events all the way to award. So we get the submissions back from the suppliers. The AI identified the categories to avoid the inflationary cost. We've gone out, we've issued the RFP, we've pulled in suppliers from our network, and then take back the bid scenarios to the end procurement customers and give them the chance to evaluate how they want to award this, what type of decisions can they make to avoid the inflationary pressures that they're seeing on their supply chain. But if they didn't have their data at that granular level, the AI wasn't pulling out the insights for us to be able to go out and take action on. One of the reasons we can take action is because the AI is doing so much of the legwork for us. And that's because of the consolidation on the data.
And I think to Chad's point, because of what we've seen with all the great resignations, I think you have to have organizations that not only provide the tools, but the people and the expertise. So if you don't combine the two, I'm not sure how you get through the entire execution journey to achieve the goal.
People, process, technology. We've been talking about it for 2 decades.
And so we'll let Aparna just kind of talk about how what we've said focuses on the vision of the future.
Yeah, so, people who were sitting at the previous panel, there were a bunch of things that came out. One gentleman asked, what's hidden in my tailspin? What are the categories that I'm not looking at that I should be looking at? When we came up 2 years ago with our platform, we had 2 goals. One, we wanted to listen to the customer. Whatever we develop, whatever innovation we do, however we use our intelligence, we wanted to make sure that we were listening to the questions being asked. 2, we wanted to make sure that we implement the vision that was being laid out by our leadership. And so when you look at innovation areas, right, there's 3 or 4 key areas of innovation that you heard even throughout the conference today. Artificial intelligence, digital transformation, how is this helping you, right? Supplier specific, I need supplier flexibility. I need suppliers with DIE, I need suppliers with ESG. So we use artificial intelligence in all key areas. Our goal is to process data much faster, much larger volume of data, to be able to identify the hidden areas in the tailspin. It's not just about cost savings, it's not just about supply consolidation. It is about finding suppliers that meet certain ESG criteria, DIE criteria. It's about adding flexibility of suppliers that you may not have considered before. So we add AI in classification, in data processing, in supplier discovery. We even take data from public catalogs that our suppliers upload, and we use the data for benchmarking. So if a supplier says, I'm going to give you 5%, 10% discount off of my catalog, we can match your data against the supplier data and say, you ought to be looking into this tailspin, this category, this supplier, because there are opportunities there. Some other areas that we can help is in a marketplace, right? So we, as Nina mentioned, our open marketplace. We invite any supplier from anywhere in the world is able to register, is able to upload their ESG information, which we make available to all our customers through our platform. And we work with the customers in providing profiles, scorecard, and all of this. I know we've run out of time.
We have a booth, so please come by and see us. But thank you for taking 20 minutes to listen to us. We appreciate it.